Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
There we go.
I'll switch into talk.
Hi, I'm Kellen. I'm C.
I'm Natalie, I'm B.
I'm Christy, and I'm A.
I'm Tristan, I'm E.
And I'm Lauren, I'm D.
All right.
So do you want to talk about all first?
Yeah.
Since everyone did that.
Mm-hmm. How did precious knowledge connect with our community assets map?
I just said our assets map is informed by the needs of our community mainly because it was created out of seeing a need for a certain community of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you support a culture in the way that they want to be supported, then they do better.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually say this, but it's a good thought now. That they both focus on the assets of a community. Because like precious knowledge is like, oh, here's all the good parts of this culture. Let's teach them more about it. And that's what we're doing with the community assets map.
Mm-hmm.
I said the Raza teacher focused on the assets of Mexican American history and brought out the significance of their ancestors, traditions, and culture and how the U.S. is shaped by and through it. And then the Sterling Meadows kind of community assets map we're thinking of is it's providing housing for agricultural workers and ELL programs for the youth, and it's focusing like on the positives that their community brings and supports their needs through the programs that will help them to develop.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
All right, 2.
Are we done with one already?
Yeah,
Unless
I mean, it was
everyone's
pretty
happy.
straightforward, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
gonna just talk about Vygotsky.
Yeah,
Vygotsky.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Super famous dude.
Yeah.
mine had not as much to do with Vygotsky, which is why I was confused.
Yeah, mine didn't either. Mine had more to do with like the social aspect of things.
Mine said drawing on examples from Calapinto, because I could never say it.
Calapinto.
Cool. And your own life experiences to illustrate his ideas. Explain how this broader social context plays out in the lives of individuals. And I literally posted, I struggled with this prompt as I was confused on what exactly were the ideas presented in the article, because it was 22 pages of different tribes and different groups and different languages, and I was like, okay, so I feel like the ideas presented, I wonder if it's just simply how the connection of individuals in communities and whether or not they have a connection with different groups and cultures diversifies their understanding of broader social groups. And I was like, So,
That was the second article.
yeah, not the Vygotsky
Not
one.
Vygotsky. What was your Vygotsky one?
Oh, no, mine was drawing on the examples from, that was what my question was.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
What? So you didn't have
Mine
Mine
was
was
like
like-
an article too.
Yours didn't have anything to do with
Well,
Vygotsky?
it did, but then it
It
told me
said
to
like
connect
draw,
it to the second
it said,
article.
remember Vygotsky, now answer this. And so I was like, okay, so Vygotsky's theory tells us we learn through and in social context. So I wonder if having the broad social connection and understanding is what allows us to learn more about others or even learn in general. And I wonder if that had to do with what my article was. But other than that, I was actually very much struggling.
We could have a muddy question based around this.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I don't even know what the main question is.
What letter are you?
Explain how this broader social
So there's
context plays out in the life of
that
individuals.
first thing that talks about, and then that one.
So it just told you what Vygotsky talks about, and then I was like, oh, so because of this, what is this?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, that's kind
So I was like, I guess unless anyone had any idea, the say one more time?
Calapinto.
Calapinto.
Sorry. Calapinto.
This individual is whose name I am struggling with. What exactly are his ideas?
Well,
Unless anyone knows.
I had a hard time figuring out what his ideas were because he didn't really come out and say them specifically, but he just talked a lot about these people and how they learned about this
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
Is Calapinto the one that wrote the second article?
Yeah,
Okay, because
He's
it
the
never
author.
really talked about
because
him.
it talked about Everett.
Yeah, it talked about Everett and about what's his name?
the other guy.
The other guy.
Yeah,
No,
Chomsky. Chomsky.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
Chomsky.
Chomsky.
Okay, so I think the question's asking like, Vygotsky's like says that all learning occurs in a social context, and like the article is talking a lot about like universal grammar and whether or not it applied to all people, and like how come this the Pirahans
The
language.
Bidahan.
Pirahan?
I found it in the article. And
I
wrote it
did
down.
too, but that's
Pidahan?
a
Pidahan.
Pidahan. Okay, whatever. The Pidahan's language group is like language is so like simplistic and stuff, and so like it was talking a lot about the universal grammar. But then there's also the part about like, oh, they teach it through social interaction, and so I don't know if that helps us clarify the question at all. I don't actually know where I was going with that anymore. It
So
started
can
out
you
there.
read your question again? Sorry.
I guess it's not a question. It's
Oh.
like drawing on examples from Calapinto and your own life experiences to illustrate his ideas. Explain how this broader social context, which I think is what's talking about Vygotsky, plays out in the lives of individuals.
So maybe just like the fact that,
I think we just said it.
yeah.
I think what you were saying earlier made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't much, but, yeah.
Right.
I think we could still get a muddy question out of here though, because I'm still pretty confused.
Yeah. I
Could
feel
our
like
maybe question
maybe
be like, what is his
clarification.
main idea, if there is one?
What is?
Yeah, what is supposed to be Colapinto's actual idea?
Like
Mhm.
main.
I think that's a good money question.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you guys.
Mhm.
I was sitting and I was like, I hope everyone doesn't think I'm really dumb.
I was confused by mine, and mine is probably actually straightforward, and I just was confused.
Mine was pretty straightforward, but
Mine was
I just
extremely
didn't.
straightforward.
I just didn't get it because I hadn't read the second article yet, and I was like, "What are you talking about? Who are these people?"
All right, letter
That's
B.
funny. Okay.
So mine said explain the role of that social interaction plays in learning and identity development. So basically, how you interact with others is how you learn. And then what does Vygotsky mean by learning occurring between people before becoming internalized? And so basically what he means by that, I'm pretty sure I'll be read, so you probably already know. But what he means by that is just that you have to like learn with others or learn by watching someone else like walk you through it, and then you'll internalize it. But you can't internalize it without like social interaction. And then it says, give examples of how social context and interaction play out in a classroom. And I forget what I said now, but basically, like, a lot of, I remember what I said now. So basically, like, a lot of math classes are set up this way, where the teacher will show you how to do a task, and then she'll say, okay, practice it with like other people or small groups, and so you'll practice it like with social interaction that way, and then once you've done that, then you can do it on your own most of the time, and then you've hopefully mastered it. So.
That's exactly what you wrote. Good job.
So that is?
That was it.
Wow.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Mine was asking about how language works with learning. Is that right? You guys have a question so far
Language
for
plays
you.
a central role in learning.
Yeah. So I said, according to text, language greatly enhances, this is in quotes, language greatly enhances the human's ability to engage in social interactions and share their experiences. So basically without language, we wouldn't be able to build those social interactions with people. And then without the social interactions, we wouldn't then be able to learn as fluently as we do now. And then it also asked me to draw on the Pidahan people. I think I said that right. I don't know. And I drew on the mosquito sound example, like when he was trying to explain
was
the
interesting.
mosquito. And they don't have that as a social interaction in their culture because it doesn't bug them like it did him. And so he had no idea what the guy was trying to say.
I love it. He's like, an
He hit
airplane
himself.
landed on your
I
arm.
That's super
These people are really interesting.
I know. I
They
like
were
the example about the
interesting.
boat the boat that was carved and
The plane?
The plane that was carved, and he was like, "Oh yeah, they do this every time someone new arrives by float plane,
And they
and
just
then it
don't care.
disappears like 3 hours
And
later."
they don't really care about it. They're
Yeah.
like, see?
Yeah. It's here right now. Oh. No, I don't know what you're talking about. That never happened. It's great.
Is that all for C?
Yeah.
Okay. D.
Oh, I'm D. Gosh, I need to learn this. I'm D. Okay. The zone of proximal development and what implications does this have for the teaching and learning in the classroom? And then what is the role of the teacher in working with the ZPD? And give examples of types of scaffolding commonly used in the classroom to support students to deepen understanding. That was a mouthful. So, I said zone of proximal development is, and then in quotation marks, the distance between the actual development level as determined by independent problem solving and the level of potential development as determined through problem solving under adult guidance or in collaboration with more capable peers. So it's like the level of what they can do completely by themselves and what they can do with help. And finding the thing that's right in the middle that's going to be challenging but not too hard, but not too easy. That's the zone of proximal development. I'm pretty sure we all learned that already, but in theory, the human potential for knowledge is like practically limitless, but realistically, like there are some limits on what we can actually learn. That's the zone of proximal development, but it continually like gets higher, not higher, like more advanced as the student gets older.
I forgot to write down what time we had our running first.
Go back and watch it. It was towards the beginning.
It was like 5-ish, 3-ish, 5 or 4-ish minutes in.
Okay, sorry.
Just put that 5-ish, 3-ish,
4-ish.
4-ish.
What was I saying?
Zone of proximal development.
Yeah, I know that much. The teacher's role in the classroom is to determine the different levels, to determine what the child can do by themselves and what the child can do with help and what would be the task that goes in the middle, and then to implement tasks that are right in the zone of proximal development for the child to accomplish. And then common examples of scaffolding in the classroom. There are a lot of them. Scaffolding is like how people should be teaching. But one of the most common ones I can think of is like when a teacher has math problems and like on a piece of paper and she's giving them to different students, and she gives one that's easier to a certain student and one that's a little bit more challenging to another student. And I guess that's more differentiation than scaffolding. But and then the other thing, I know scaffolding is confusing, but there's like
It's like giving them harder questions as the day
Yeah.
goes on, or as the lesson goes on.
And then having to help them a
yeah, I know. My other example was like for like a reading comprehension article or something. You can first give like questions that are like, this is what happened. What did this person say here? And then what does this mean? And then how can you apply this to your life? It's like, what's the 6 different things we talked about in our first time? Bloom's taxonomy.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy that you can answer. Maybe we didn't.
I don't think we talked about it in here.
Well, okay.
You did it in your sped thing last quarter.
Okay. Wow, that sounds great. Anyways, Bloom's taxonomy. Yeah, it's kind of like that where you start with the basic like understanding questions and then you move to like analysis and then you move to like application.
I have to read an article for that for my math class.
Bloom's taxonomy?
Yeah.
Well, not really.
381.
Not really.
Maybe that's why I was so focused on that last year.
It's like, well, it's like a different, not everyone has to read it. What we're doing is like, we have to do a article presentation, so everyone has to read a different article.
Journal presentation?
Yeah, and that's just the one that I picked. It was talking about making questions for math. And then it talks about,
Is this an apple?
well,
or a
it's
pear?
not due until the end of the quarter, so you guys might have just not talked about it yet.
Sorry, did that make any sense?
Yeah,
Or was
yeah.
that super
I mean, I've
confusing?
already like read about the zone of proximal
Yeah.
development
Yeah.
like so much
I
last
know,
quarter.
but-
So
Is like differentiation, is that what you were talking about?
No, I was supposed to be talking about scaffolding, but I got the two mixed up, so
Oh, okay.
my post is more clear than I was speaking. That tends to happen.
all right. So I'm gonna read my whole question because I got kind of confused anyway. So it says Vygotsky believed that people are socialized in many different ways, schools being just one of those ways. How might the status of the current U.S. educational system, one's citizenship, documentation status, and language learning in schools be interconnected? How might this type of socialization affect access to opportunities and barriers to certain opportunities in the U.S. context? So, for some reason, when I was reading these, like now that I read them, it makes sense that I was supposed to just think about it, but while I was writing stuff down, I thought that I was supposed to be like basing it off the article, which it doesn't sound like I actually was supposed to be doing at all now that I reread it. So I didn't really have like a lot of stuff because I mostly was talking about what Vygotsky said. But for the how like the status of the current U.S. educational system, when citizenship interconnected. I mean, he was talking a lot. I'm just gonna say what I wrote because I can't think on the spot.
Yeah.
But he was talking about how, like, you learn socially, so you're so like, here, let me find something that makes sense. So it says, like, yeah, all new knowledge and skills are greatly influenced by each student's culture and their family and environment. So that's kind of what I was thinking, like their school and the way they learn is going to be influenced by their culture and their environment at home before they even came to school. So that's how I was kind of like tying those together. But I need to go back and like re-answer the questions because I don't think I answered them.
It also sounds like last week when we were talking about unauthorized students who have like a really stressful time in school because
Yeah,
they feel like
exactly.
they have to be hidden, and that can really influence like their ability to learn and how they communicate and connect with others.
Which is exactly like how might this type of socialization affect access to opportunities and barriers to certain opportunities in the U.S. context? Because like Vygotsky was talking about how everyone should be taught together. Because back then they would like take people who had disabilities and just like put them in a completely different room.
do that.
And put them in a completely different room for the entire school year and then not have the other classroom. But in my like practicum classroom, we had integration, so we had the disabled students in the room, students with disabilities in the room with us. But I mean, ELL learners or ELL students aren't just students with disabilities, but they can't be learning the same way that the standard regular classrooms, I think, because of not knowing the language and
There's definitely a
that.
huge language barrier.
yeah.
There's
So-
definitely ways though that you could set up your classroom
Yeah.
for like both native English speakers and like if you just like change your instruction to be like that. You know what I mean? Because it'd be helpful to both students, like
Yeah.
both native English speakers and ELLs.
So I was saying is like they shouldn't be taken out of the classroom, but I don't know. But I think
Because it's the
how
least restrictive environment to have them in the classroom.
Yeah.
because it's like social
I
learning.
just don't know how exactly you would like change your teaching style to be effective for all the
Yeah,
students.
and also I feel like, especially if they don't know any English at all, just being thrown into a regular standard classroom isn't going to be helpful either. Like they need the social learning, and you don't want takeout stuff because then they're missing what's happening in the classroom. But then I feel like they also need the extra help.
It would be ideal if you had a teacher that spoke all the languages of all the students
Yeah.
in the classroom.
Through special ed law, they're supposed to require and provide translators and interpreters, and
They don't in the
they
younger
don't a
classrooms,
lot.
though.
Yeah, they'll kind of finagle their way over that. But I think even like putting directions on the board, like typing it up, putting it on the projector in Spanish, just going through Google Translate, it's a little.
As
a
long
little-
as
It's
Google
something.
Translate
Something,
is-
yeah.
you could
Also,
do that.
like, most of the kids that are doing that don't know how to read. Like, a lot of the kids
Yeah.
in kindergarten, first, second grade, they don't know how to read in their native language either.
Exactly, which
So,
is
like,
why
putting
they
the
want you to
directions up there.
focus on their first language first, and then
Yeah. There's this really awesome lesson that Jennifer Green does in all Scandinavian, I think it is.
Oh yeah, we had one in ours where it was all French.
And you sit down and she like starts speaking and you're like, I don't know what she's saying, you know, like you freak out.
also it feels like as if you're
Right.
Yeah.
But then, like by the end of her lesson you understood everything that she just said.
what class is this for?
Well, she didn't do it for me. She did it for teachers that came to the Compass to Campus tour day, and they were all
Is it
telling
online
me about
somewhere?
it.
They did it in SPED 364 as well. So
Oh.
we take that class.
Oh,
we take
cool.
it with
We got a
Jenny.
whole lesson in French. It was very exciting.
And she did it one way, like aggressively and yelling and angry, and the second one she was like slowly and repeating and you know.
And you like understood.
And
what
that's
she
it.
was saying.
Happens then?
And that one with that teacher, yeah.
Who's your professor?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't have it right now.
Oh, just kidding.
I have state next
I have statements for it too.
Sweet.
That was something to look forward to.
Is that was the one about the email, right? And then no, that was that.
That's
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
you.
it was,
All right. Number
You have to
3.
take that.
Number 3.
All right.
Colapinto!
Yep. So that's
Ooh, what's our answer to the first question? Do we think that the remote Amazon
What?
Where is
First-
that?
What?
Oh,
has a remote
no.
Amazonian tribe upended our understanding of language? I mean, we don't have to answer it, but like,
That's
what
not.
would
That's
we
the
answer?
name of the article.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's a good question too.
Has a
What
remote
do you think?
I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think so, but it's also like one tribe, and they didn't find. I mean, Everett was saying that there's more all over the world, but like they didn't talk about any other
I
ones.
thought it was really interesting that they didn't get the whole like grammar thing when they were trying to teach like the laptop with the monkey tracking thing with their like the Pirahan, like village members.
Yeah.
That did not like grasp it. Like they didn't get it.
I think it's interesting that they didn't grasp like the numbers and stuff, and how later they're talking about how Everett was saying that they have the brain capacity, like they have the ability to do it. It's just not part of their syntax and their and so like it's a cultural restraint. So like it's not that they're like less intelligent, or
It's just that they don't.
it's just
have
that
any
it's not
reason.
part of. Yeah, exactly.
Alright, well, I'm going to do A because you guys said it all. Mine was according to Everett, what are the distinguishing characteristics of the Pirahan language?
We didn't say all of them.
And how does he explain the differences? So I thought I'd just jump in.
Sorry. We got excited. It was a good
Okay,
article.
so I said it was just, I tried to just go with the basics. It's distinguished by use of choppy staccato. There's no like real numbers or fixed color terms, perfect tense, and then I went on to say that there was no words for like every, all, each, most, few. And then there was no use of recursion, which they were like, really baffled by. I said that there's, this kind of rejection of anything from kind of outside the world or discourses, that are unlike theirs or, just not theirs at all. And I said that they kind of explain these differences by just detailing how they are like a severe counterexample to Chomsky's linguistics theory of universal grammar. And I said they like unpacked, the 11-ish-year-old boy. I don't think they knew his actual age because numbers thing, And they found that a lot of the claims were, applicable. And they were just like, oh, okay, this is different, this is unlike. And they were like, but it's not like the only example. There's others like them. So they're like, so it's not like a rare outlier.
Right. Well, and he did say, like, there were new things that they found about this culture, but if we've just recently discovered them and, like, that they have all of these, like, random things that no other culture has, I'm sure there's probably other cultures
Yeah.
like that.
But they didn't actually talk about any other cultures.
Yeah,
Right.
so that was like,
So it's like, can that really be a statement that's
Mhm.
made about all cultures? Like, because what if they are the only one?
Right. They could
They could be.
Just a weird outlier. I thought it was interesting how, well, maybe. I'm just making sure I didn't write about it. I do have to write that, so I'm not gonna say it. Okay.
Round 2B.
No, I'm C. She's B.
I was like, you could talk right now.
I'm getting it up on my phone, so
I mean, see, there you go.
Do you want me to just do C? Okay. I can do that.
Okay, go see.
Can you read the question for me?
Yes.
I don't have it.
This article highlights reactions of many prominent linguistics to Everett's characterization of the Pirahan language. What are some of these positions, and what does this academic discussion tell us about the study of linguistics?
That's a big question.
That's a big question.
The only question was, what are some of these positions, and what does this
That's a
academic
yeah.
discussion
I
There's a
wrote
lot of
down.
answers.
There were a lot of answers. I only wrote down 2.
That's
because-
okay. It just said some.
Yeah, I wrote down Steven Pinker, and quoted him, and I said that he said that Everett's paper is a bomb thrown into the party,
Yeah.
which
Weird.
was a very strong reaction,
yeah.
describing how it's so hotly debated amongst the linguistics crowd.
Ooh.
Linguistics people shouldn't use sentences like that.
I know.
I feel like we never get to use hyperbole as we're
Yeah.
doing it.
But yeah, but I think he just meant like everyone was so sure because of Chomsky.
Yeah.
And his
'cause
theory.
everyone has to believe
And
what
now
Chomsky
everyone's
says.
like, what? And everyone's like, I don't believe it, and they still didn't believe it until they went, and then the people who didn't believe it had to go visit him, had to go visit Everett just to, and then it was ridiculous how they tried, wasn't ridiculous, but they tried to do things that would woo and awe, like other
Yeah,
and they were
cultures.
like,
And they were like, who are you? Like,
Stop doing this.
and I wrote about that, and I was like, do we like categorize people into like who are in a different culture than we are into these certain boxes, and like they tried to impress them like they were.
Like,
I found it offensive.
Yeah, I thought it was
actually.
super offensive. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the weird, like,
I feel like-
or whatever. You
Yeah,
know?
it's like treating them like
Or, like-
children or something.
you know,
Yeah.
it's like.
And so I
can't
thought that
remember.
was a
This
big.
is-
Oh, that's so creepy.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, yeah.
You're so weird.
Why is
Are you
mine
impressed? Oh,
Check
look
it
at
out.
me.
Oh
Are
my
you
goodness.
impressed, Peter Han? We're putting. Literally though, it's like
Yeah.
as I was
Moving
reading that, I was like,
myself.
you guys are
Yeah.
kind of jerks.
It was so awful, and I don't know. I wrote about how like we all think our language is superior, but just because a society or language is not like ours doesn't mean it's any less credited as a language or that it will be shaped like ours. I even thought that sometimes some of the people who didn't believe Everett's assumptions or like findings of the language, I feel like they didn't think it was real because they didn't think that they thought that they were right and they thought they knew everything and
Yeah.
there couldn't be anything else. And I also thought that was offensive. They didn't think that anyone else could have any other language because they thought that all of them would be the same because they only know their own.
Yeah. But I had a question with that because, like, so there was a couple people who were like, oh, I don't believe you, and then they're like, we're gonna go visit Everett and like see what happens,
Yeah.
like in this tribe. But then they never really talked about what the people believed once they saw it. Like, did they
Yeah.
accept that Everett was correct, or were they like, well, because actually later it kind of talked about how it was like, no, they totally have what is it called, recursion. Yeah. Someone was like, no, they have it. Like, it just doesn't look the same as ours does, but they have it. Like, that was later in the
Yeah.
article.
But
I feel
like they don't.
but they don't. So I feel like the people were just like, even when they did see that they didn't have it, they're like, well, no, they still do.
We'll
Like,
just change the definition a little
Yeah.
bit so
Yeah.
it works for us.
Yeah.
no.
Like they couldn't believe that they had actually found
Yeah,
it.
That's
I like
another
that as a
question.
money question.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Okay.
Most of the time, this one's so short.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, this one was a really short.
It
It's our
was
money
short.
question.
Yeah, what is the
Oh,
money question?
yeah, it was.
It's
Did the
It was like,
people
did they accept that once they visited that there wasn't recursion,
yeah.
or did they just try to change the
The
definition
definition of
to
Yeah.
recursion.
fit?
Did they like accept the differences, or did they just kind of
Keep
Make
going
it
with
more-
their
more
more vague.
complex? They were like,
We're right.
That's exactly what they sound like.
Exactly
all that.
Right.
She's gonna watch us and be like,
this was a weird week for this group, huh?
Yep.
We're struggling a little bit.
Tuesday,
Just a little bit.
midday.
Because we're meeting earlier in the day.
Yeah.
Only like 2 hours though.
But it's also
Earlier
early
in
in
the
the
week,
week,
too.
like a
Yeah.
lot earlier.
Technically, we should be more normal right now than we would be on Friday. But
What is normal?
I
I
feel like
think
we're
because
so
maybe
stressed.
this is more
Stressed.
normal. Yeah, trying to like fit it all in a couple days.
Maybe this is more normal, and that's just how we are. And then Fridays, we're just so tired that we can't be like this.
are you deconstructing your pen?
No, it broke.
Okay.
And I'm just playing with it.
Okay.
Okay, C.
C.
Or
B.
No, B.
B, sorry. I meant you, but I didn't say the right letter.
So my question was, how did Vygotsky's theories inform your understanding of this
Yours was so straightforward.
summary article? And so I basically just said that because, so Vygotsky's theory is that you learn based on social interaction, and because this tribe hadn't interacted with another culture, that this was just all the people that they had interacted with forever just assumed that culture, and so they just assumed that culture for their whole lives, and then because of like their human nature, they just weren't into other cultures at all. Is this 3?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Do you want me to read what I wrote, or is that good enough? Sufficient?
I mean,
We all read the article.
Yeah.
Right.
also, this has nothing to do with any of the questions, but it has to do with the article, so I just wanted to say something really quick. so people were saying that maybe why do I keep forgetting how you pronounce it?
Pidahun?
Pidahun?
I have it up here. Wait, I have it up here. She was pointing at it. She doesn't know about it.
The Pidahun tribe was like, they're talking about how they didn't have, like some people were thinking maybe they just didn't have the cognitive abilities, like they were lower. I don't know. I guess they were kind of saying like they were dumb because maybe they had reproduced a lot with each other since they were just one small tribe. But I found it interesting because I was like, oh no, the women were allowed to like
sleep with outsiders.
But because they were like smart enough to know that was gonna cause like
and they weren't allowed to sleep with
They weren't
their
allowed to
first
marry
cousins.
yeah
And maybe their second cousins, but it's still frowned upon.
they were allowed to marry. They weren't allowed to marry outside the tribe because they wanted it just to be tribe people. But like they knew that there needed to be a specific amount of like out reproducing.
Like, how did they know that?
Chlorine
Yeah.
in the gene pool.
Because they're just so smart. They're not them.
Yeah, they're not dumb, which is what I was like.
They're just, it's interesting because they're just not interested.
Yeah.
They just don't.
They're very
care.
passive about other people's like cultures
Yeah.
and other people's things.
And like anything that happens outside of what they can see in front of them, they're like, oh, that person walked around the riverbed, they're out of experience.
Which is literally living in the moment.
That's kind of cool.
It's like how babies, like
If
up
you
until
can't
a
see
certain
it,
age,
it's not
like
here.
if you cover something up,
It's
they're like, oh my god,
gone.
it's gone. You know, it's kind of like that. But they don't care.
Yeah.
Like, baby, I would care that something just
disappeared. But it's just like, okay, well, move on to the next thing. Like, that
Yeah.
doesn't matter
Like,
anymore.
oh, that person's not there, well, this is, so whatever.
And I thought it was interesting how, like, oh, the art of, like, well, isn't him carving that plain art? And it's like, no, because he's just going to, like, toss it away. And, like,
doesn't care
this
about
doesn't
that.
matter.
Right
Like,
now,
it's not
you
going to
can
be
see the play.
reproduced, and, like, other people aren't going to try making, like, new, unique things. Like, nope,
Yeah.
you did it, and then it's done.
Bye-bye.
Just so interesting.
I just want to know how they, like, meet up for things, like, because, like, if they're going to, like, do something today, they can't say, let's meet when the sun comes up, because
They don't do
the
that.
sun hasn't come up yet, but, like, how do they do stuff together? How do they wind up in the right place together to, like, do things? Because they don't think about things that happen even,
Maybe
like,
they just
10
only
minutes
do
in the
things
future.
in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, they don't make plans.
I don't even
Instead
know.
of it's like all spontaneous, like let's go see a movie. No.
Yeah.
You know.
If they had movies.
Well, let's go watch some fish. Let's go hunt.
Or like, what was your, to start talking again. What were you saying?
Start
talking. Well, I'm trying to remember what I was going to say, and what were you saying?
I was saying how, like, I wonder how they, like, plan stuff, because, like, people would be like, let's meet when the sun comes up to go fishing the next day, or let's meet when the sun is, like, above this certain time. I'm trying to do it without time, so all I can think of
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
like, let's meet blah, blah, blah here, but, like, they wouldn't be able to think 3 hours in advance, or 3 hours, a certain amount of time in advance. They wouldn't be able to, because, like, it's not in their experience, so they can't see it right now. So, like, if following that theory, like, how would they get anything done? Do they just, like, all show up in the center and sometimes and be like, oh, hi, like,
I think, like, do you want to say it before you forget?
No.
I think, like, you know how, like, in the old days, like, we didn't have phones, and we wouldn't be like, I'm here, or I'm coming in 10 minutes, or I'm on my way, or
I don't
whatever.
understand how the world functioned.
And
Yeah,
and then
honestly.
people would just be like, okay, I'll pick you up on Friday. And then you would just pick them up on Friday. It's kind of like that. Like, tomorrow we're going to go fishing. And then you would just meet tomorrow and go fishing.
But they can't think of tomorrow, theoretically, if they're only thinking of things that are in their experience, because they don't think of the future. That's why they won't, like,
Well, maybe they
make
just
enough
never make
flour to
plans.
last
Like, you
more
see
than
someone, you're like, oh, hey, we're both here at this time. Let's just do this.
Maybe they just
Yeah.
do whatever they want. And if
Yeah.
someone happens to be there, then
That would be
whatever.
so, like, carefree.
Yeah.
Because they, like, don't store up food for in advance for, like, multiple days because the days aren't there yet. And that, like, if I was a baby, that would make sense. Babies wouldn't store food ahead of time. They get exactly what they want right then and then leave it.
And then it's like, I mean, then they'll have something to do, because if they, like, did all their fishing for, like, 3 months in advance,
Is that,
what
like-
are they going to do?
Do you think that's, like, something that we teach babies in our culture? Like, is that, like, a social value that we embed in them? Is like, oh, you need to think about the future
Yeah.
and stuff?
I think it's a Western culture.
Yeah, well, we
thing.
I
say it
definitely
every
think it
day
is.
to our
Yeah.
children. You have to think about the future,
Future,
from the
yeah.
time that they can understand what we're saying to them. So
And
Yeah.
it's just like switching it, like how he was saying that the Pitahan tribe, like if you were to take a baby out of that tribe, take them to the United States and raise them like that, they're gonna end up just the way that we are here.
Yeah,
But you can't teach the adults there, which is interesting.
Because they aren't interested.
Yeah.
I feel like if they're interested and they were like anthropologically centered and they really wanted to know our culture, they could do it.
Right.
It's just that it's not in their culture to care.
And I mean, there might be like one of those people that are like, I am interested. Like, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
back with them to the United
Or like the
States.
16-year-old girl
yeah.
that like actually was semi-focused on the test or understood what they wanted to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
There's always gonna be people
Again,
like
how does
that.
it
Yeah,
getting these
there's
ages?
that.
These it-ish. They're like,
They
you look
probably-
about 16.
Yeah. You can look at bone structure, like if they've started puberty, that kind of stuff, probably.
Yeah.
Fair.
Okay, but also one thing I wanted to say is that I found it super interesting also how they didn't have like any beginning stories. Like every culture is like, oh, well we started because of this, or like
creation.
creation story, or like there's some bigger being out there, or like there's some reason for something, and they're just like,
It's always
It's
been
It's
always
always
been-
like this. Yeah.
we just do what we do, and then it just is. It's so interesting.
It's so like I don't know.
counterintuitive to us.
It's
we can't
really-
even
So zen.
I know. I didn't want to say zen. I just want to be like it's so relaxing. Like I would want to go live there and be like.
I don't
It's
think we
just
could
about
live there. But I think it would
there.
drive
No,
us crazy.
It
to
would
live.
drive us crazy.
Like, I mean, obviously, this like the linguists have gone and lived there, but like they kept some sort of track of like future and past in their own brains.
Yeah.
and they were studying.
But they're also I was about to say they're also going there to study.
Yeah.
So if I just went there and I didn't want to study,
Yeah,
Like,
just
could you
wanted
do it
to-
though? Like, how long would we? make it
everyone I
before we'd
knew
go
was dead.
crazy?
if everyone I knew was dead and gone, all I had were these people. I don't think I would care about time anymore.
Honestly, like, if it was my life right now and I just went and expected to live with them, I know for a fact I couldn't, because even when I just, like, went to Hawaii, they're way more laid back, and I was, like, there for, like, 2 weeks or something, after a while, I was like, I need to
You need to
do
go.
something. Like,
Well, it's
yeah,
like
I
during,
need to
like-
have something to do.
It's like over like spring break or like summer break or whatever, and or like winter break, and you're sitting at home, and you're like, awesome, I don't have classes, I don't have to go to work.
Yeah, and then you're
What do I do with
well,
my
but
life?
their
Like,
life isn't like that at all because they have stuff to do constantly. They're
Yeah.
still
True.
surviving and
Mhm.
living and have a way of life.
yeah. But I mean, so do people in Hawaii, but they're just way more laid back.
Yeah, but you were on vacation.
Yeah.
So that's why you didn't have anything to do. But the children who are like, who would be, all right, well, maybe not
Well, I
children
mean,
our
I was
age,
talking to people and like learning about like their days, and like the person that, for instance, I was getting a henna, and she was telling me about her days, and she's like, "Oh, I wake up at like 9 o'clock. I work for like 4 or 5 hours doing the hennas, and then I just go to the beach, surf a little bit. I might just like sleep on the beach that night, and then just like wake up and come to work the next day." And I'm like, okay,
but
all right, like I don't know, it's
awesome.
just so much more laid back.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and like just different cultures have like have like different concepts of time compared to
Yeah.
us. Like in our culture, it's like rude to show up 15 minutes late, or at, like when we say a time, like we're very like structured on time, whereas like other cultures, like have you ever
Even
like
Spain,
like Mexican
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
Spain.
or
Spain, yeah.
Their afternoons are so relaxed, and they're like dinner at 8, and dinner can be any time between 7:30 and 9:30, and it's still a dinner at 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. We had an exchange student. I had an exchange student from Mexico living there my senior year of high school, and she did not understand. We were like, okay, we need to leave the house at 7:30 to go to school, and it'd be like 7:30, and she'd come downstairs in her pajamas, and we were like, we need to leave, and she's like, oh, now? And we were like, yes, it's 7:30, and she was like, oh, and she just like didn't get it. It took her like a month to figure out that when we said a certain time, we actually meant that time.
Yeah. And they're more, I mean, I guess this is not due to time, but I was just thinking in my Spanish class, we always talked about how they are like more, if you pass, or in passing with someone you know, it's not, oh, hi, how are you, good, and like move on. It's like, oh, actually stop. Like, it doesn't matter what you have going on. Even if you were on your way to some meeting or something, you still like, oh, stop. Like, actually talk. Like, actually have a conversation about what's going on. Like, it's not surface level, like, I gotta get out of here and go where I'm
I think
going.
it's because our Western cultures are so like focused on like you have to get this many things done each day and like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
to be here rather than
Time
yeah, time crunch. So busy.
Easy.
Are we ready for D?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, near the end of the article, the author shares a story of a Birahan woman singing a repetitive song to a child. How did Everett's wife, Karen, or ex-wife at this point, I guess,
Yeah.
interpret this interaction? How has Karen come to understand the Birahan language? And what might this interpretation say about language acquisition versus language learning? And what does this interpretation suggest to us as students of language? It's actually not that many questions when you break it down.
Yeah.
At first I was like, whoa, but no. Karen's wife, or Karen, not Karen's wife, Karen interpreted the situation as the woman teaching her child to speak or teaching her child the language or singing or something to that effect, like teaching the child the culture and language, which I think is a brilliant interpretation of it because,
It was repetitive.
yeah, it was repetitive. The lady was just singing the same thing again with the toddler at her feet, and like, that makes sense that she was teaching the toddler that. And Karen thought that because she'd come to interpret the language as kind of a sing-songy, like a, what's the word, prosody? There's a lot of prosody in it.
I don't know what that means.
It's like a poetry type.
Oh.
Yeah, with a lot of prosody. Yes, that's. I had to check my words, see if that was the right word. It's a language all about like prosody and singing, and it's all about like tones because they were saying again how like the syllables didn't matter and they drop like nouns off of the like they simplify nouns into like one syllable words and stuff in another part of the article.
Or how the girls have one less, or women have one less vowel.
Yeah, like there's all these different things. It's all about like the tone and the pitch, and they only have like 8 consonants and 3 vowels or something like that. Like you
So
can't
crazy.
get enough words out of that unless it's all about how you say the words and how well, like how you. I don't know the tone of them. That's all I can think of. But I forgot the question now. Oh yeah, so she came to understand it as like a singing language. It's all about tones. And then what might this interpretation say about? Oh, I know what that first question. How has Karen come to understand the Pirahan language? It's not asking what she thinks about it. That's asking how she learned to think of it. And that is because she decided that she was actually just going to watch the people instead of like bringing her notebook and her tape recorders and like trying to listen again and again. She was like, no, I just need to observe these people like a baby or like a child. Or, like children don't learn with tape recorders or notebooks. They learn by living.
So funny.
They learn by like watching their parents and being in the culture every day. And so Karen was like, all right, I'm gonna try to learn that way. And that's how she figured out that it was like a singing language, is because she just spent hours and days and months just watching them and actually observing what the people were doing. And I think that's the biggest difference between language acquisition and language learning. And I think that as students of like linguistics, well, kind of, as students of language, that we should like not focus so much on like, oh, I'm going to write down these grammatical rules of this and this structural thing and this thing is wrong and we can't do this and this could be said like this, and instead we should just like go to the place where the language is spoken and watch the people. Because it's like when you try and learn a language in college, like I'm in my 5th year of Spanish right now, and like I could go to Spain right now and I could manage to get sentences across to them and I wouldn't die, and like, but it's not going to be
And
good.
they would be like, ooh.
They would be like,
What
you
are
are a Spanish language learner from the U.S. that has only done this in
Yeah.
books and notebooks, and like that doesn't do me very much good until I actually go to the country. Because once people go to the country, they always say,
Yeah.
like when people go to the country that speaks language, they're always like, oh, my language speaking ability improved like 7 years worth in like 2 months, and I'm like, wow, how does
Yeah.
that happen? It's the language acquisition versus language theory.
And you have to learn it to be able to communicate.
Yeah, because you can only learn so much by writing things. You have to do it or see
Yeah.
it or live in it. I don't know if that answers my question super clearly. It answers my question clearly in my head.
I think it answered
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Okay, my question was, how is Chomsky's theory described in this article? How are Everett's ideas about language different than Chomsky's? And then why might this be controversial? And we kind of already talked about this, like the idea that Chomsky had this theory of a universal grammar, and how a part of that is that all languages have recursion, and then Everett was like, no, the Pirahan people don't have recursion, and
It's okay.
and then everyone started, it became this big controversial thing because Everett just totally denied what all these people believed, and then we already talked about it. That's pretty much it. They
I
didn't
need
talk
a
about
third money question.
I do. I was trying to think if we could pull one out from what you were talking about earlier, just in the overview of the article. Another one we were just like,
Well, we have a question about time. Like, how do they ever manage to
Yeah,
get
that-
things
yeah, actually,
done?
That's a good muddy
yeah,
question.
let's do it.
That's
Oh.
very muddy. That's like
That's
just want to
I wonder when we were talking
greasy.
about that.
we could just say it right
Say
now.
zero.
Yeah.
This is when we decided it. Yeah.
Does
It goes back a long ways.
how do
No, not a super long ways, like 10 minutes-ish back.
it's okay. I think it's okay to say it right now.
Yeah.
How do the Pirahan people ever meet up to do something together?
If they can't think about time that's not happening right now, how do they say let's meet and go fishing tomorrow because they don't have the concept of tomorrow in their mind?
Which I
Just
can
in
really
case you
imagine
don't
that
want to
they
go back
just
and
don't.
find the exact spot where that question is, that's some of our background to it.
But I can imagine that they just don't.
Like, do they just
Like, it doesn't make sense to
walk
me,
out into the
but-
village square and spontaneously decide to go fishing, or do
Yeah.
they?
That is fun.
That's what I feel like.
Because they don't plan things.
Or
with
maybe
each
they'll
other.
just, or maybe they just don't make friends with others, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna go fishing right now, and then if you happen to meet up with other people that are also fishing,
Right.
you're like, chill.
Cool,
What up,
we're
bro?
all going fishing together.
Yeah.
They say the word chill.
And bruh, they're like, bruh, cool, we're both fishing together, that's lit.
I think
That's
this one.
lit. Exactly.
It's the last one.
I just think it's crazy that they don't plan ahead for the future at all. They don't like, oh, it's gonna be raining the next 5 days. Let's do the things that we need to do when it's not raining.
How do they
How-
know?
how
they don't
okay,
know.
well, you know, that was a bad example, but you mean like
I want to
someone-
know.
I think it's interesting how it's like, oh, also how the people said that, oh no, they have one too many, and Everett's like, no, they don't. They have a little, some more, and then just like a lot, and then that's it. Like, but people were trying to be like, no, they have one too many, and he's like, no. And then it just became like
I
this
think it's interesting
war.
that they won't adopt out like non-native like farming techniques. Like they won't plant
just spit
seeds
out
or
the
stuff.
seeds.
Like
Like,
anything
it's like-
growing in this village is either planted by someone else or spit out by them. Like they
I-
won't like
was
do
trying-
agriculture.
I was trying to explain that to my boyfriend. I was like, yeah, they just like not farming or anything. And he was like, then how do they like get food? I'm like, they just spit out their seeds and then stuff grows.
But I think it's interesting because they'll wear Western clothing.
Yeah.
Like, they'll wear
Which is
shorts
funny
and a
because so many
t-shirt
of the
and
other
a
tribes
dress.
around there will do a lot of the other stuff that they won't do, but they won't wear Western clothing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
They're like,
So
might as
huge
well
thing.
not be naked. Cool, thanks. Like,
Think about how like our public school system though also makes us think about the future. Like even if you didn't come
oh,
from
literally
a
everything.
family that made you think about the future,
you need
Then-
to learn this math concept so you can understand the next one. that you're gonna learn
right?
next year.
But like just
And
going,
set you up for high school, and set you up for college, and set you up for your life, and set you up for retirement, and like,
yeah, just like
And
going-
don't have babies.
Yeah.
don't have
So-
babies yet.
Yeah, you're gonna have
That's
them
like what we were
later.
talking about yesterday, Natalie, with the whole. Like,
What?
That was like we were talking about yesterday at our meeting, where it was like those young women had babies when they were very young and they still graduated or are in college now. Don't they all go here?
No, 2 of them go
Two of
here.
them go
3
here.
of them go
It was
to.
like, because society tells us you can't have a baby and succeed in anything if you're young.
But
It's like-
people still do it.
and they
Yeah.
did it, and it was like, that was cool.
what about like, oh dang, what was I gonna say? I don't know why I forget things so easily.
You're on a roll today. You're on a roll forgetting what you're gonna say.
Oh yeah, I was like, I don't know. Okay. Spit out the seeds. I don't know.
Are we done?
I think we're done.
Okay.
Bye.